Okay, so for the lung of the oral transmission of the mantra, I will say it bit by bit, and you repeat it after me. Okay? So what you're getting is the American pronunciation of the Tibetan pronunciation of a Sanskrit mantra. Okay? So, Namo Ratnatrayaya, Namo Argyana Sagara, Verasana Buharatsaya, Tathagataya, Arhate Samyasambuddhaya, Namo Sarva Tathagatebe, Arhatebe, Samyasambuddhebe, Namo Arya Avalokite, Shoraya, Bodhisattvaya, Mahasattvaya, Mahakarunikaya, Tayata Om, Dada Dada Diri Diri, Duru Duru, Ite Wate, Sale Sale, Patsale Patsale, Kusume Kusume Wari, Ili Mili, Sititsola, Abanaya Soha, Namaratnatrayaya, Namo Arya Gyana Sagara, Veratsana Boharatsaya, Tathagataya, Arhate Samyasambuddhaya, Namo Sarva Tathagatebe, Arhatebe, Samyasambuddhebe, Namo Arya Avalokite, Shoraya Bodhisattvaya, Mahasattvaya, Mahakarunikaya, Tayata Om, Dada Dada Diri Diri, Duru Duru, Ite Wate, Sale Sale, Patsale Patsale, Kusume Kusume Wari, Ili Mili, Sitisola, Apanaya Soha, Namaratnatrayaya, Namo Arigana Sagara, Veratsana Boharatsaya, Tathagataya, Arhate Samyasambuddhaya, Namo Sarva Tathagatebe, Arhatebe, Samyasambuddhebe, Namo Arya Avalokite, Shoraya Bodhisattvaya, Mahasattvaya, Mahakarunikaya, Tayata Om, Dada Dada Diri Diri, Duru Duru, Ite Wate, Sale Sale, Patsale Patsale, Kusume Kusume Wari, Ili Mili, Sititsola, Apanaya Soha, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum. Okay. So these mantras have a lot of energy behind them. You know, you can hear that when we say them out loud together in a group. Also, you know, in your own meditation or when you're alone, when you can do them in a whispered way, saying them out loud. And then as, you know, they become more of a vibration in your body, just the silent, you know, without moving your lips, silently reciting them too, you can feel the energy. And so there's something about mantra that, you know, it's sound and it's energy, but it affects the mind too, if you know what I mean. Somehow like a bridge, I think, in some ways between body and mind. in the sense that when you really recite a mantra with a lot of focus, a lot of concentration, you can feel it in your body, but you can feel it in your mind as well. Yeah, and you can also feel when your mind, your mental energy or your physical energy is out of sync with the mantra. Because then you recite the mantra, it's hard to recite, it doesn't come out right. We can just feel a clash of energies. But as you do the Chenrezig practice more and more and become more familiar with the mantra, then, our energy kind of conforms more to the energy of the mantra. Yeah? People who have done the practice for a while, is this your experience? Yeah? Okay. So, let's continue with parting from the four clingings. Okay. Now, parting from the four clingings, yeah, this text is telling you what Chenrezig's mind is like and how Chenrezig became Chenrezig. So don't think that the practice is one thing and this text is something else, because when you actually study the Dharma, you are studying exactly how a Buddha looks at the world. Okay? So you're getting, it's like, the Buddha is explaining, okay, this is how I perceive things. So then when you meditate on Chenrezig, and you're trying to think about, well, how does Chenrezig perceive things? And if I'm going to become Chenrezig, how do I change my mind to look at things in a more enlightened way? Well, this is exactly it, by practicing parting from these four attachments, parting from these four clingings. Okay? So, my point here is don't see the visualization, mantra recitation, that practice as something completely different from what we're studying here. Yeah? If you want to become Chenrezig, this is it. There's no other way. It's not like we're studying this text and then we practice something else that wasn't taught here, and that's the path to become Chenrezig. Yeah, this is the very thing that all the beings who have become Chenrezig have practiced and what they've actualized. Okay, so parting from the four clingings. If you cling to this life, you are not a practitioner. If you cling to the three realms, that is not renunciation. If you cling to self-interest, you are not a bodhisattva. If grasping arises, it is not the view. Okay, so we started talking yesterday about the first one of these. If you cling to this life, you are not a practitioner. And so our author, Drokpa Gyaltsen, was, in talking about this, he talked about ethical conduct on one hand, and then study, reflection, and meditation on the other. And so when talking about ethical conduct, first he taught about the benefits of it. It's the root of higher transmigration, the staircase to liberation, antidote to suffering. Yeah, we can't do without it. And then he talked about when we practice perverse ethical conduct that clings to this life. So ethical conduct that clings to this life is when our ego's involved and we're trying to get some ego mileage from appearing to be ethical, from appearing to be a moral or a refined person. Yeah. So he cracks this open, yeah, and says its root is in the 8 worldly concerns. So automatically it's not going to be the path to awakening. It attracts accusations of immoral behavior because we're saying one thing and doing another thing. It makes you jealous of those with ethical discipline. We didn't go through this verse last time, did we? Or did we? Oh, so I should go through it into it more detail right now. We did or we didn't? Yeah. Okay. So it makes you jealous of those with ethical discipline. So when we're being phony baloney, of course, we're jealous of people who actually are ethical and who walk the talk. It makes your own discipline a mere pretense because, we're being hypocritical. It's the seed that creates lower transmigration because we create a lot of negative karma. And so the conclusion, cast aside the pretense of morality. So cast aside looking like you're holy, making excuses, justifying, rationalizing, all that whole thing, and just put it down. Give up on that. And then he started on study and reflection. So we talked about how study... Those who engage in study and reflection. That one's the one we're starting now. Yeah. Okay. So... we did talk about yesterday that study meant hearing teachings, reading, watching them, any way of learning. Okay, and reflection means thinking about them. And thinking about them so that you can correctly understand them. It doesn't mean thinking about them and coming up with your own theories. It means thinking about them and really understanding what the teachings mean. Okay, so he starts this out too, initially talking about the benefits of studying the teachings and thinking about them to get the right understanding. So if you do that, you are enriched by resources that enhance knowledge. Okay, so, when you study and reflect on the teachings, you begin to know something, and not only know something intellectually in terms of having the meaning, but you also begin to not only intellectually in terms of having the words, but you also begin to understand the meaning of what the words are talking about. Okay? So you're enriched by resources that enhance knowledge. You're starting to understand what the Buddha is teaching. First by understanding the words, then by understanding the meaning. Okay? And it takes time to do that. Okay? You're endowed with the light that dispels ignorance. So when you know the teachings, you've heard correct teachings, and then when you are, really reflecting on them and coming to correct conclusions, then it gives you the light that dispels ignorance because, you're understanding how things are, you're understanding the path to full awakening. Okay, so that becomes like a light that dispels ignorance. So we can see it just in terms of even our ethical conduct, At the beginning, we don't really understand so clearly what the difference between virtue and non-virtue is, and what makes an action heavy and what makes it light, and what makes it a complete action and what doesn't. And we don't understand so well how to purify. Yeah, but when you have study and reflection, then you know all these things, and that really helps your life because then it's clearer in your mind what to practice, what to avoid, if you make mistakes, how to make amends for them. Okay? So it really helps you to dispel that ignorance. In the same way, if we have study and reflection around let's say, the meditations on love and compassion, then we begin to understand why it's possible to have love and compassion for all beings, why it's necessary to have love and compassion for all beings, and how to actually do it. And so that becomes something very, very helpful for us. Okay? Dispels ignorance. They are familiar with the road to guide sentient beings. Yeah, so from study and reflection, when we have correct understanding, then we have some Dharma in our mind that we can share with other people. So when people come to us with their problems, we have something we can say that will help them. Okay. They are endowed with the seed of the Dharmakaya. So the Dharmakaya refers to the Buddha's omniscient mind. Yeah, and so again, when you have study and reflection of the teachings, you have the seed, of the Buddha's mind within you, and once you have that seed, then you can nourish it and it can really begin to grow. Okay, and just as he concluded with ethical discipline when he said you cannot succeed without ethical discipline, he concludes here saying you cannot succeed without study and reflection. In other words, if we don't study and reflect on the teachings, there's no way to become a Buddha. Yeah, so we don't attain Buddhahood by praying, just, Buddha, please, I'm so devoted to you. May bless my mind that I have my realizations. We don't attain Buddhahood by sitting down, closing our eyes, and quote, quote, meditating when we have absolutely no idea what meditation is and how to do it. Okay. We have to actually study and learn the teachings and reflect on them so we understand properly. We can't succeed in our spiritual practice without that. So that's very important, actually, to understand from the very beginning, because you see some people who, are very interested in having a spiritual path. Yeah, but they throw study and reflection to the wind and think, well, I can, just hear a couple of things and then that's all I need, without, having to really learn the Buddha's speech and the great sutras, the great treatises that expand on them. Or you meet people who say, there's no use study and reflection, it's just a lot of words and concepts. I'm going to meditate, but they don't know how to meditate. They sit down and close their eyes and do what I did at my very first meditation course when I had no clue what to do. And we were waiting for the lamas, and, there's a monk in front, and he said, okay, let's meditate. I didn't know anything. So I put my arms up like this, and rolled my eyes back in my head, because I had seen some magazine photo of that. And I thought that's what you do when you meditate. And of course you roll your eyes back, your head starts to hurt after a while, and your neck starts to hurt after a while, and you're going, what is the purpose of meditation? Well, if you had studied, you would know what the purpose was, and you would know how to do it correctly, yeah? Or you get people who, invent their own style meditation, yeah? So how do you meditate? You sit there and you dream about, you and Buddha boy on the beach. Yeah? Because that's positive affirmations, I guess, You visualize what you want to have, but it's all the 8 worldly concerns that you want to have. So that's just fantasy projection. It's not meditation. Yeah? So we imagine all these this beautiful thing. Then, oh, what a wonderful meditation session. Well, how is that different than daydreaming? Yeah? Okay, so that happens when we don't, we haven't studied and we don't know what meditation is and how to do it and what the purpose is. Okay, so when it says you cannot succeed without study and reflection, he's being really kind and giving us this advice to make sure we don't go down the wrong path and get ourselves good and stuck. Okay? then, so there in that paragraph, he talked about the benefits of study and reflection. And then now he's going to talk about the study and reflection that clings to this life. So this is when our ego is involved. Okay, so our ego's trying to get mileage from study and reflection. Okay, so think about it for a minute. Yeah, what kind of ego mileage can you get from study and reflection? What would you be doing in terms of study and reflection that would, you know, give your ego some mileage? Yeah.
Well, you've noticed in your readings all the things that make you right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we notice in the readings all the things that make us right. What else?
Ways that influence people.
Yes. We would know something. We would have nice words that sounded good, you know, that we could say that would really make people think that we were very wise. Yeah. We might even influence them with our enormous wisdom. What else? We might even think we're awakened, yes. Because we can quote this, we can quote that. Okay, so you see some way that we can get a little bit puffed up about this? Okay, so what happens? It provides resources that produce conceit. Well, yes, look, I've studied this text and that text and the other text. I have this degree and that degree and my Geshe degree, and I have this rank in the class, and I have this, that, and the other thing, you know. And I was able to, you know, come out top in debating, and yeah, so, yeah, we can really puff ourselves up and think that we know something, when actually it's just the 8 worldly concerns, an attachment to praise, an attachment to reputation. Okay, it causes contempt for those inferior in learning and reflection. Because we are so learned, maybe we even have our PhD in Buddhist studies, wrote our dissertation on blah blah, and our thesis on blah blah, and here are all those poor people who don't know as much as I do, you know, who didn't study Buddhism at the university, who didn't go, you know, and do the program in the monastery, you know, but I have done that, and so I know so much. I'm so much better than those people, right? We have contempt for them. Okay, it causes envy towards those who possess learning and reflection. So the people who have learning and reflection, we compete with. And we not only compete with them, but because our learning and reflection is actually inferior, because we just went through the motions so that we could look good on the outside, we don't really know so much. So then the people who do know a lot, and the people, you know, we get very jealous of. Okay, so here in these 2 lines, yeah, it produces resources. No, it provides resources that produce conceit. It causes contempt for those inferior in learning. It causes envy towards those who possess learning and reflection. So producing conceit means we compare ourselves, we're better than them. Causing contempt, we compare ourselves to others, and we're still better than them. Okay. Envy, we compare ourselves to others, we're lower than them. And competition, we compare ourselves to others, and we're equal to them. So the whole motivation for learning the Buddha Dharma is totally corrupt, because it's all based on comparing ourselves to others and trying to come out on top. And what is spiritual about that? Yeah? If we really have a spiritual mind, of course we want everybody to learn the Dharma. And we're not caring about who's better than the other person or who has the most acknowledgement. Okay? But when our motivation is corrupted, we're very concerned with those kinds of things. And we want to make sure our learning and reflection are acknowledged and appreciated, and people think well of us because of us. People admire us because of it. We might even have a little train of groupies following us around because we've impressed them with our knowledge. That's the next one. It causes you to seek retinues and wealth. Yeah? If I'm so knowledgeable and I'm so smart, then all these other people will admire me and think I'm a fantastic spiritual teacher. And they'll follow me around, so I'll have retinues, groupies who are going, oh, my teacher is so wonderful. You should hear my teacher speak the Dharma, you know. And so we're seeking retinues, and we also seek wealth, you know, because, well, they're our students, so they're going to make offerings. Here's the bowl. Put them in. Yeah? One time we did a skit like that. It was fantastic, you know. It was a very, very good skit. Okay, so it causes you to seek retinues and wealth. Again, just, you know, for ego prestige. Yeah. Then, of course, you want to have name and fame. So in all the Buddhist magazines, you know, when you open the front cover, there should be a big picture of you. Yeah. Sometimes a picture with a big smile. And sometimes a picture you're looking in space. Like you're seeing some incredible. And sometimes the picture, you are in meditation. Yeah. And then you look so holy, you know, in this Buddhist magazine. And of course there's some ads, you know, for where you're teaching with the price and a discount price if you register early. And yeah, and on and on and on, okay? It becomes a business. Yeah, it becomes a business. So it's the root that brings forth lower transmigration. Why? Why does it bring unfortunate rebirth?
The karma you're creating, the control of greed, you know, pride, things like that.
Yeah, you know, when our mind's under the control of pride and conceit and envy and greed, it's not going to be good karma. So we're creating the causes for our own lower rebirth.
And where are you taking the people to?
Yes, this is the really dangerous part. Where are you taking the people who are your followers? Mm-hmm. And that's the really scary part. Yeah, I mean, if you want to send yourself to the lower realms, that's one thing. But when you're trying to get famous and you have a lot of people who follow you into the lower realms, that is really a tragedy. Yeah, it's really a tragedy. And so that's why we have to be very careful about who we select as our teachers, you know, and really know people well and screen them well and check on their qualities. And it's also why we have to be really very clear in our own practice, so that our own ego machinations don't jump in and, you know, want to make ourselves into a big Dharma star. Yeah, because Buddhism is fairly new in the West. People don't really know the qualities of a good teacher. And so they think charisma is one of the qualities of an excellent teacher. Yeah, I haven't seen charisma mentioned once in in a text as a quality to look for. Yeah, but there's some people who have very nice ways of speaking, who look very exotic, who present themselves as extremely learned or whatever, and then many people follow them. So it's quite sad. It's quite sad. When I was recently in Hamburg for His Holiness the Dalai Lama's teachings. So there's a group of people who are disciples mostly of one Tibetan Lama who teaches widely in the West, but also a few other Tibetan Lamas who teach wisely in the West. And they're doing a certain practice that His Holiness Dalai Lama has recommended not doing, because the practice is, from His Holiness's viewpoint, is worshipping an evil spirit, but these people think it is, that evil spirit is an enlightened being. And so, His Holiness really strongly recommended that people not do this practice. And one of the reasons for it was that it interferes with the functioning of the Tibetan government in exile and with Tibetan freedom, or the attempt, for Tibetan autonomy. And outside the Hamburg conference hall, huge group of people, I don't know how many, maybe 75, 100, screaming at the top of their lungs, false Dalai Lama, stop lying. And these people have been doing this kind of protest against His Holiness for years. I mean, I've seen them at, Buddhist teachings way back even in the 90s, protesting. And some of them come out, they're dressed in robes with their Dharma robe on, screaming that kind of thing, with signs. And the last day they had a drum and they were chanting it together with the drum. And I was thinking, my goodness, they're working very joyfully to create the karma to be born in the hell realms. Because they're following this teacher, and they have, the students themselves have an incorrect understanding of what it means to follow the teacher, and the teacher is behaving in a way that is completely I can't understand it, It's like, why do you need to protest? Even if you don't like something, why do you need to go out and scream on the streets, against His Holiness and make all of Buddhism look quite bad? And accuse, His Holiness is, definitely a bodhisattva or a Buddha. And then to accuse somebody like that, yeah? And it's like, wow, these people are really going down the wrong path with so much delight and glee. Yeah, it's just totally amazing. Yeah, I just looked at them with wonder, like, I don't get it. Yeah, but this is, what happens. This is what happens. Anyway, don't do that. Yeah? Really? Well, they have a society for their cause, but I think there's a few different societies that are focused on the same thing, and then the students come, some are Western students of Tibetan teachers, and some are Tibetans, or also Chinese students of Tibetan teachers in different parts of the world. Yeah. So I think from a few different places, but this one cause, which is not a cause at all. It's not a cause. It's like, if you want to do that practice, go ahead. Nobody's preventing you from doing it. I don't know why anybody would want to do it, but anyway, if you do want to do it, His Holiness isn't, you know, sitting there bugging you, preventing you from doing it. So, anyway, I don't understand. So, what to do? Okay. So cast aside study and reflection driven by the 8 worldly concerns. You know, looking for glory and glamour and newspaper write-ups and whatever it is, you know, that bolsters your ego in this very lifetime. Okay, any questions about this so far before we go on to the next section? Yeah.
What about those of us who are new, and those of us who are new,
Mm-hmm.
and we cannot even aspire to say, oh, I'm so great? Is there a risk that we become mediocre in our practice? Should I challenge myself to be not just the object of being admired,
Mm-hmm.
but to have some standard of performance that is not low. But I don't want to be saying, oh, it's just because I'm new and I don't know anything, then everything is acceptable. Any level of performance of my Dharma practice is acceptable.
I don't think I'm getting the question exactly. Are you speaking about yourself or about as a new person? Is it good to just say whatever I'm capable of doing is good enough? Yes, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not falling below the standard or
No, because the thing is, we can only do what we're capable of doing at one particular time. We can't do more than what we're capable of doing. So, of course, what we're capable of doing must be good enough.
okay.
Yeah? So, when we say that, of course, it doesn't mean that we can't, that there's no room for improvement. Of course, we can improve in the future. But we can also have a sense of satisfaction with what we're able to do right now. Okay? Because at this very moment is what it is. We might as well be satisfied with it. Because being dissatisfied with it is not going to change it. So we can look in terms of what we've accomplished, you know, in our Buddhist practice so far, and say, that's good. Where I am right now, that's good. That's better than where I was before. You know, we're not saying I know everything. We're just rejoicing at what we've been able to learn, how we've changed so far, and we're rejoicing at that. And that's good. And then when we look towards the future, then we know, of course, we can change and improve. Can we open that door and get some fresh air? Be very helpful. Okay, does that answer your question okay? Yeah, because some people tend, you know, to look at their Dharma practice and then say, don't look at Venerable Tarpa. Okay, sorry, Venerable Tarpa. They're just getting distracted again, you know. And you're not even sage or Gora, the babies. When we had some friends who brought their babies to the teachings, I had to hold the babies, otherwise people wouldn't pay any attention to me. Yeah. But when I held the babies, then everybody looked and paid attention to the teachings. And the baby would punctuate the teachings every once in a while at the right point. It worked out very well. Okay. So where were we? Being satisfied. Yeah? Okay? So it's important to rejoice at what we've done and what we know, and at the same time know that we can improve. Yeah. If we're always looking at where we are at present and seeing ourselves as deficient, oh, so-and-so knows more than me. So-and-so understands this. I don't understand it. So-and-so studied that. I haven't studied it. So-and-so knows how to do this. I don't know how. So-and-so's been recognized as blah, blah, but I haven't been. And we go through our life always comparing ourselves with what we think we should be or with what other people have been. Then we wind up to be very unhappy. Yeah, and it doesn't motivate us at all to improve. You know, sometimes you think, well, if I don't compare myself, I won't have any motivation to improve. But if you do compare yourself, then you just sit there and it's like, well, I'm a loser, and you don't try. And instead you repeat to yourself a litany of why you can't do it and why other people have better opportunities. So your whole time and energy is taken up in wasting your time instead of in practice. Whereas if we look what we've done and we say, that's good. It's better than where I was before. I'm glad. Pat myself on the back. Doesn't mean I'm perfect, but you know, that's okay. And then you go forward, then your mind is content, and you go forward with some some enthusiasm. Okay, so we really have to learn how to think properly. And a lot of us have patterns of thinking that are completely dysfunctional and stupid. Don't we? Yeah? And we just think the same stupid thing again and again and believe it. And then wonder why we're so unhappy. And our unhappiness is not coming from outside. It's coming from believing in thoughts that are not true. Yeah? So that's why we need to learn how to discern what is a realistic thought and what isn't, what is a beneficial thought and what isn't. And then so we're able to learn how to think correctly and not believe everything we think. Okay? I wind up saying that so much during Dharma talks. Again and again and again I say this, you know, because really this is one of our biggest pitfalls in the West, yeah, is how much we put ourselves down. Okay, we should have a contest about who can put themselves down the most. Yeah. Yes.
What are your thoughts on, in regards to studying? I think when I took refuge decades ago, it was impressed upon me very early on in my learning that you stay kind of true to one particular lineage of teachings.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I wonder if I've done myself a disservice over the last few years by only studying the Kaju scripts or the texts and the sadhanas, and not really familiarizing myself with the other teachings from the other lineages.
Okay. Okay, so this whole thing about multiple lineages and following more than one teacher or following more than one lineage and so on. I think it's very important to realize when we take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Yeah, we don't take refuge in the Tibetan Buddha and in the Khargyu Buddha or the Gelu Buddha or the Theravada Buddha. We don't take refuge in the Zen Sangha or the Huayan Sangha or the Nyingma Sangha. We take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Okay? And you know, it may be helpful until we learn the teachings well. Well, you know, it really depends, because when you look at the Tibetan teachings, you know, if we're going to talk about the four Tibetan traditions, yeah, the basic fundamental teachings are the same. Yeah, it's only when you get into Tantra that you have different lineages of different deities, and where the vocabulary can be different and so on. But Tantra is a very advanced practice. We need to do the practices that bring us parting for the four clingings, you know, kind of stop clinging to this life, stop clinging to samsara, stop clinging to our own self-interest, and stop clinging to inherent existence. And in those terms, the four Tibetan traditions are very, very similar. Okay? When you recite the prayer of the lineage lama, they have different lineage lamas. When you get into Tantra, you know, different deities. But, you know, we need to really form a good foundation in our practice. Okay? So, and I know for myself, for me personally, I didn't even know that there were diverse Buddhist traditions. All I knew was, you know, when I went to the first teacher that I studied with, actually, was that what they told me helped me when I put it into practice, and it made sense when I checked it using reasoning. So I kept going back. I didn't even know there were different traditions or anything. I knew nothing. Yeah? So that was good enough for me. And they're still my teachers, and they sent me to study with other teachers. Yeah. So. Okay. Should we go on? Okay. I went into a Dharma center one time in Vermont, you know, because I like visiting different Dharma centers and temples and things like this. So it was a Tibetan place, and I walked in, and the person who met me said, "First question, are you Nyingma Kagyu Galua Sakya?" I said, "I'm a human being." Oh, okay. And then he took me around on a tour, you know, of the center. When we got to the kitchen, the cook was there and said, "Oh, very nice to meet you. Are you Nyingma Kagyu Galua Sakya?" And the guy said, "She says she's a human being." You know, it was like so remarkable for them to you know, that's all. Just a human being. Okay. So cast aside study and reflection driven by the 8 worldly concerns. Do you remember them from yesterday? Okay. Then the next verse, all who undertake meditative practice. So now we're moving on to meditative practice. Okay, so between study, reflection, and meditative practice, that's the third one. So meditative practice means after you've learned the teachings through study, after you've gained a correct understanding of them through reflection, then putting them into practice and really meditating on them so that your mind becomes very familiar with them and it becomes your way of seeing the world. Okay, so all who undertake meditative practice are endowed with the antidote to the afflictions. So he's going through the benefits of meditation here. They possess the root of the path to liberation. They possess the seed of Buddhahood. You cannot do without meditative practice. So when you meditate based on ethical conduct, based on study, based on reflection, then you are endowed with the antidote to the afflictions. Because when you've really studied the text very well, then you know the antidotes to the afflictions. You know when you have an attack of attachment, meditate on this. When you are depressed, think about that. When you are jealous, apply this antidote. When your mind is too lax in your meditation, do this. So you know all the antidotes. So then when you sit down to practice, you know what to do, and you're able to become a doctor to your own mind. Yeah? Okay, so you are endowed with the antidote to the afflictions, because now you know the antidotes, you can apply them. They possess the root of the path to liberation. Yeah, so through learning and studying the sutras, the great Indian commentaries, the great Tibetan writings, yeah, and by thinking about them, understanding them correctly, then you have the root of the path to liberation, because now the path of practice is very clear in your mind. Yeah, you have a good overall understanding of what the practice is. What you practice first, what you do second, what you do third. You have an understanding of how the later points in the path relate to the former ones, how the former ones, give enthusiasm to the later ones. So, you possess the root of the path to liberation. You know what the path is. You can plant your feet on it. You can cultivate it. Okay? They possess the seed of Buddhahood. Yeah? So even beyond liberation is Buddhahood. And now, again, you know the teachings that are going to lead you to full Buddhahood. So you have the seed of those teachings in your mind. And through meditation, you familiarize your mind with them again and again, thereby transforming your mind. So then, when we talk about death and impermanence, for example, as an antidote to attachment, instead of, it just being some kind of theoretical thing, all we have to do when attachment comes in the mind is think impermanence, boing, the attachment's gone. Yeah. When anger comes in the mind, you think kindness of sentient beings, anger's gone. Yeah, because you know what the antidotes are, you understand them, you practice them, they're becoming a part of you. Yeah, so you have that seed of Buddhahood that you can nourish and develop. And you cannot do without meditative practice. Yeah, so meditation is another essential ingredient on the path. We can't do without ethical conduct, yet ethical conduct isn't the only thing that's going to bring us to awakening. We can't do without study and reflection, but study and reflection alone won't bring us to full awakening. We can't do without meditation, but meditation alone without ethical conduct and study and reflection, that won't do alone either. Okay? So we're really getting here. What are the crucial elements that we need to cultivate so that we have a good foundation and can go forward, without a lot of obstacles? If we really have a good foundation, then there aren't a lot of obstacles on the path. If we don't have a good foundation, then we face so many obstacles because our mind, goes off in this direction, it goes off in this, we dig a hole for ourselves here, we put ourselves in prison over there. Okay? So without these things, you cannot succeed without them. Yeah? Okay, now, as for meditative practice pursued for this life's sake, so with the 8 worldly concerns, what happens then? It brings distractions when residing in solitude. Okay, so you're going to go off, you're going to do meditative retreat, residing in solitude, and you think, you just get the most solitude cave, you know, or cabin or whatever, and you're going to be a great meditator. But you're meditating for this life's sake. So what happens? You have gazillions of distractions because your mind is still thinking about the 8 worldly concerns. Because you're meditating for the purpose of the 8 worldly concerns. You know, if I meditate, I'll get offerings, I'll get fame, I'll get approval. You know, people will know about me. And so then you sit down to meditate, and you think of all your old friends, yeah, and how they're going to look on your Facebook page and see that you've signed out for a year or 3 years to go do retreat, and they're going to be filled with awe and respect. Oh, wow, look, my friend renounced everything to go live in a solitude place. They must be a very special person. Well, I'm that person who's done that, you know. And they're all reading my Facebook page. And I might even put it on LinkedIn too. Because now it's a professional site, isn't it, you know? So now I am a professional meditator. People should know. They can get my signature after I come down. Okay. So your mind's totally filled with the distractions. You know? And the Tibetans say this often too, that, you know, we always think that we have so much attachment to food. Yeah, they say getting rid of attachment to food is easy. Getting rid of attachment to reputation and praise is so difficult. Because you can, you know, you give up your attachment to food and go to some isolated place, but then you just think of all the, you know, you're inflating your ego by what you're doing. You know, now I'm doing what all the great lamas did. This is so exciting. I'm sure to get some realizations. I always find it fascinating to look at what people do after they do retreat. You know? It's fast. Yeah. It's true. They go off on like 3-year retreat or 1-year retreat, come out, start a business. Yeah, get married, go back and get a graduate degree. It's fascinating to watch what they do after doing retreat. And it makes you wonder, what were they meditating on that whole time? Yeah? They're very interesting. Okay? So that would be actually quite a good study. You know, this is, if you want to write a PhD thesis or a dissertation, let me suggest that topic. Research what people do after they do 3-year retreats. That would be very interesting. Okay? Okay, so it brings distraction while you're residing in solitude. It makes you adept in the art of empty chatter because you're supposed to be in solitude, but you're chatting to all the neighboring meditators. And maybe you even have arranged in your isolated place that you can get online. You know, because now, I mean, there's the waves everywhere. Yeah. So maybe you can, then you can do a, what do you call it, like a blog, yes. You can write a blog about your retreat. Yeah, so it makes you adept in the art of empty chatter, especially when you finish your retreat, well, depending how long you even stay in it to start with. You know, you come down and then you have all these good stories to tell people. Okay? It makes you defame those engaged in study and reflection. So you consider yourself more advanced because you're a meditator than those people who are engaged in study and reflection. So you defame them, you deprecate them, you put them down. They're just learning words. They're just learning, you know, empty chatter, how to discuss the teachings. I'm the true practitioner. practitioner. Okay? Actually, if you're going to be a true practitioner and a meditator, you would respect any Dharma practice that any sentient being is doing, instead of looking at it and putting it down. Yeah? So somebody who's meditating, who's then putting down people who study and reflect, they've missed something out. They've missed out a key element about Dharma practice, which is rejoicing at others' virtue. Yeah? It makes you jealous towards other meditators, of course, because your meditation is fueled by the 8 worldly concerns, so your mind's distracted. Yeah, then you look around at all the other people in the cabins who are definitely in samadhi. Yeah, and you get jealous. And then you start finding faults in those people, because you know the mind that compares ourselves to others, then, you know, we can find something to criticize in everybody. Yeah, so we become very adept in criticizing and picking at faults. Yeah, which is another sign of poor practice, isn't it? Okay, so cast aside the meditative concentration of the 8 concerns. So I think that's a little bit of being facetious. The meditative concentration of 8 worlds. So I am single-pointed on the objects of sense pleasure. I am single-pointed on having praise and approval. Okay. So, any questions so far? Anything? Okay, then give you something to think about in your meditation.